Daniel's fiery furnace, cold spots in Daniel's fiery furnace. That was not what happened. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not survive Nebuchadnezzar's furnace because of cold spots. After all, they climbed out of the furnace. They would have run across some hot spots. And when we say cold spots, we're still talking thousands of degrees. A furnace is supposed to heat evenly. It's contained. It's supposed to heat pretty evenly. But we can go through this. If you look at the temperature paper burns, that's 451 degrees. And when the soldiers were approaching the furnace, they were killed by the heat. Why weren't Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego killed by the heat when they approached the furnace and they were in the furnace? The soldiers were killed by the heat of the furnace. How did Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego at least not get severely burned? And they went into the furnace. So paper burns at 451 degrees. Now, if you imagine being in a furnace that was 451 degrees and there's a cold spot maybe of 300 degrees, would you survive? And this is Fahrenheit. I'm not doing Celsius, we can convert it. If paper burns at 451 degrees and the soldiers were killed when they took them into the furnace, and you take 450 degrees and the furnace was raised to 7 times its normal heating capacity, so its normal range. So it would probably be about 500 degrees would be its normal range, or 700 degrees. But I'm using 451 because that's the temperature paper burns. Times 7, 3,157 degrees. Could you survive in a furnace that was 2,000 degrees or 1,500 degrees? If people think 100 degrees is hot, what would they think of 2,000 degrees or 1,500 degrees? So it would be at a minimum of 3,157 degrees and was probably closer to 5,000 degrees. And they walked in the furnace and they were unbound. Nebuchadnezzar put them in there bound. And they were unbound, and there was a fourth man walking around in the furnace. He said it looks like a son of the gods. A fourth man in the furnace that looks like a son of the gods. And they climbed out of the furnace, which killed the soldiers. It's clear that if you believe the story of Daniel's furnace, of Nebuchadnezzar's furnace in Daniel, that they should have been killed. They should have been burnt to a crisp. You know, can you imagine putting something in the oven at a minimum of 3,157 degrees for, say, 5 minutes and coming out with anything but ashes? It was probably 5,000 or 7,000 degrees. It killed the soldiers. And it said their hair was not singed, and their clothes did not smell of smoke. There was no damage on them whatsoever. God saved them. That's the story of Daniel's furnace. It's a true story. Whether you believe it or not, it's got the stamp of God on it, which says that it's true. Not that it's in the Bible, but that God said it. That it is a real story. It's divine. You can tell it's divine if you have faith. Thank you for listening. I wish it was interesting.